Story number 1. Grease is the word. I'm going to tell you the story of a terrifying old creep that has stalked me since I was 16 years old. I'm currently 20F. So basically, to set the scene, I'm an average height, average size 20-year-old female. I've been told I'm very approachable and perhaps too nice to strangers. I sometimes just don't have the heart to tell people to fuck off, and I definitely should. Obviously, I'm not going to give specific details, but I worked in a restaurant which was inside a bigger shopping center. My stalker, an old man named Eric, worked for the actual shopping center itself, and not a store inside it, like me. When I was 16 and first started the job, I was quite timid and awkward, and let anyone say pretty much anything to me. I didn't quite know what to say when older customers and other employees would make inappropriate comments to me. I would simply just laugh off whatever people would say or not respond. In my 16-year-old mind, this was a lot easier to handle. I had one other friend at my job who was my age, and her name was Jessica. Jessica had worked there for longer than I had, and one day she asked me if I'd heard of this guy who worked in the shopping center called Eric. Jessica described Eric as very strange. She didn't describe him as frightening or unsettling or even someone to be afraid of, just as a very eccentric man. Really, she and other employees would laugh at his odd sayings and awkward behavior. Jessica has also told me that Eric had brought her a present on Valentine's Day: chocolate. Anyone would think this was friendly behavior, or harmless flirting, if he wasn't a 50-something-year-old man bringing chocolates to a 16-year-old girl he barely knows. I began to see for myself that Eric wasn't just an innocent old man with a slight crush. He had other intentions. The first time I remember Eric approaching me was when I was filling up a machine near the entrance of my work. This machine was out of the view of all of the other employees, and the restaurant was empty, so this was pretty much the perfect time for a creep to approach without being seen. Eric wasn't supposed to enter my place of work when he was working at the shopping center, so he had deliberately gone out of his way to come and speak to me. To describe his appearance, he is your typical creepy old loner. He was gaunt, had gray hair with bald patches, and had beady little eyes which he never averted from yours, and I can't get them out of my head till this day. Eric must have sneaked up on me, as I looked up and he was standing right next to me, a little too close. I could feel his breath on my cheek. "My name is Lucy." Eric asked me. "Lucy, are you married?" He almost giggled after he asked me this. He had a smirk on his face which made me feel as if he was trying to pretend that he thought I was older than I was, and at 16, I looked 16. Eric liked to ask me questions that he already knew the answer to, just to see what my reaction would be, letting me know in his own way that he had been looking up information about me on social media. He would do this frequently. I began to clock on to the fact that Eric had been going a little further than just approaching me at work, and instead stalking my social media accounts in the weeks following this first encounter, such as Twitter and Instagram, when he began asking me very specific questions about things I had posted about in the days before. For example, I had posted on Instagram about a tattoo I got, which was in homage to my favorite band. I was serving a customer one day, only to be interrupted by a shrill, but quiet voice. It was Eric. His eyes were huge and he had a look of pure excitement and menace on his face. He had yet again entered my workplace when he wasn't supposed to, just to talk to me. He asked me, "Lucy, what's your favorite insert band here song?" Eric relished in my discomfort. You could see by my reaction that I was clocking on to the fact that he had been viewing my personal social media, and the thought of that made my blood run cold. I felt disgusting and violated. The tattoo I had gotten was covered by my work uniform, so the only way he could have seen it was by going through my Instagram page. This creeped me out majorly. but somehow I just forced myself to forget all about it and carried on working. Over the course of a few months, Eric would come into my workplace more and more frequently, asking me bizarre questions and still reciting back to me things that I had tweeted about or posted on Instagram. Every time I would see him, I would get visibly uncomfortable, and he liked this. This is what he wanted. All while this was happening, Jessica approached me and let me know that Eric had followed her in his car on her walk home from work, slowing down to ask her where she lived. I had also been told other disturbing news about Eric from multiple different people. It seemed as if he was becoming more invested in whatever his intentions were towards me and Jessica. News had traveled to one of my managers about Eric's unsettling actions towards me, and this manager informed me that a few years ago Eric was rumored to have followed a young girl who used to work for our restaurant into a toilet. Things didn't quite make sense to me. He was known for being a creep yet still employed at the shopping center. On one hand, I was glad to know I wasn't just creeped out for no reason, but on the other hand I was frightened, as he'd been doing this for years yet no one had stopped him. Anyways, there was a woman who worked at the same place of me called Rebecca, and she had some sort of disability which caused her to befriend and be trusting to people without knowing anything about them. It seems that Eric took advantage of her, as he had asked for her phone number and she gave it to him. Rebecca had shown me her texts with Eric. He had texted her things like, "Rebecca, are you alone?" and "Rebecca, are you sat on the bus alone?" But the most unsettling part of it all was the text from Eric that read, "Rebecca, could you please let me know any information on the girls that work at insert restaurant name here?" I was stunned. This was quite slowly turning into my nightmare. I was constantly questioning why this old man was so hell-bent on finding out everything to do with my life. Why me? He had gone out of his way to source information about me through a vulnerable person I worked with, and I was scared he was going to go further. Again, this creeped me out, but still, for some reason, I forgot about it and carried on with my life, which was very hectic at the time, and in a way I'm grateful that I didn't have the time to dwell on Eric's growing obsession. However, this was something I wouldn't be able to ignore forever, as Eric began inserting himself into my life in ways I couldn't just ignore or brush off. One night I was watching the movie Grease with my family, and I must have tweeted something stupid like, "Grease is my favorite film because it's a great film, right?" Anyways, the morning after my tweet, Eric approaches me in his usual way, and utters, "Do you like the film Grease, Lucy?" The same usual smirk lit up his face and the same usual wave of disgust washed over me. He was really making it a point to let me know he was watching me. I tried to carry on with my day, but spent the entirety of my shift feeling a little shaken up. To someone reading this story, it may not seem as unsettling to you as it did to me at the time, but when someone is going out of their way to make sure you know they know information about you, you spend every waking hour thinking about what they plan to do with this information, and why they insist on taunting you with this knowledge. The very second I clocked out of work and got into my car, my phone went off. This was a notification for PayPal. I clicked on this notification to see that I had received £3 from an Eric Stanley, and the note attached to it read, "To Lucy, Grease is the word, from Eric." He literally found my PayPal account and sent me £3 with a quote from the movie attached to it. If this wasn't crazy enough, in the days following I received a string of anonymous calls, incessant calls, one after the other. I was in floods of tears and ended up having a huge panic attack. I felt like there was no escape. My phone rang and rang and rang all night. I had to turn it off to get away. Even when I turned my phone back on, the calls continued, and every time my phone would ring my head felt like it was being impaled with the sharpest knife in the world. I was on complete edge. The phone calls that I did answer were just someone breathing down the phone, making a point to breathe heavy. I even swear that they were trying to sound like they were jerking themselves off, which sickened me. I had no proof that this was Eric, but it wasn't hard to put two and two together after all the lengths he had gone to in order to track down my personal information. If he had found out my PayPal address, my phone number and all of my social media accounts, what was stopping him from finding out where I live? Breaking in? Hurting me or my family? That night I had horrific dreams in which he chased me around my house and taunted me for hours. I still have similar dreams and struggle to sleep without my boyfriend present, as I'm scared he's standing right outside my door to this day. I reported Eric to my managers and they passed my complaint on to the managers of the shopping center. At this point I was genuinely scared for my safety. Multiple girls added to my statement and added details of times they had witnessed Eric's unsettling behavior or times he had been inappropriate with them too. Eric had been cautioned by the shopping center's management, yet nothing was done, except the fact that he was warned not to talk to me. Eric found ways around the no talking to Lucy rule. He would make animal noises at me when he would see me, like a monkey or a dog or any bizarre noise that would get my attention. I think he just wanted me to think that he had outsmarted me, found a way round the rules. After this I stopped working at the restaurant as a full-time job, and saw Eric less and less, which was obviously great for me. I moved cities as I went away for university, and made new friends which distracted me from my old life in my hometown. I still thought about Eric every now and then, and when I focus on it for too long, I can't be alone, out of fear that he is still keeping tabs on me. The thought of that terrifies me. After moving away and starting my new life, I forgot all about the twisted little man who used to obsess over me at my old job. I forgot he existed, but I was soon going to remember. On Christmas Day I was back home in my hometown with my parents. My phone buzzed, and I expected it to just be another message from a friend or a family member, but I was wrong. I received a notification from PayPal, and it was the exact amount of £3, only not from Eric this time, but from a girl whose name I didn't recognize at all. I opened up the PayPal app only to see a note attached to this payment I had received. The note read, "Sending on behalf of Eric." My blood ran cold again. I had forgotten all about this man and all he had done to make me feel unsafe and unsettled, and here he was again, antagonizing me, yet this time doing it through other people. Perhaps his way of telling me that him being banned from talking to me himself won't stop him from entering my world. I threw my phone down on the couch and spent the night drinking with family, until I forgot about the notification. I probably should have told someone about it, but I just wanted to do as much as I could to block him out. I didn't want him to control me anymore, and I since haven't seen or heard anything from him, and I want it to stay that way. I think Eric still works at the shopping center, and lives local to me. I avoid my old workplace so I don't have to see him, and he doesn't have to see me. So to the creepy, beady-eyed freak that made me live in fear, let's not meet again. Story number 2, man stalks chases me on secluded running path until I can hide and call police. This happened within the last 24 hours. I live in a large city in the US. Like many people, I have taken it on myself to try and get back in shape during the new year, so I've recently gotten into running and lifting 5 days a week. Yesterday was a run day for me. I usually start at my apartment and cross over to this long park that runs the river close to my apartment. The park is filled with sports fields, tennis courts and many runners along the pathway. I've been going 2 to 3 times a week for just over a month. I was on my run last night listening to a podcast minding my own business and decided to go a little further than I normally do. To this longer stretch where the park sorta ends for like a half a mile before it picks back up, kind of an area where they park equipment, Many people avoid this area due to it not being waterfront/ugly. I decided to run to the end of this area before circling back home. As I'm running, I see a man 200 or so feet ahead of me walking my direction. Not unusual at all. I've passed like 40 people already, but this area is empty except him and I, as most people circle back. Still, I ride my bike here to commute for work and have never gotten weird vibes. I'm also an average built man and feel pretty secure most places in my relatively safe neighborhood. I keep running, listening to my podcast, when I notice the man's path is directly in line with me, as in if I continue 150 more feet I'd run into him, so I shift to the other side of the path, 10 or so feet, keep running not paying attention, look back up and he's in my path again, still no alarms. Maybe he shifted to get out of my way and we did that thing where we both went, so I shift back to the side I started on. I watch him, he shifts to my side. I'm thinking this guy is fucking with me. I'm 50 feet away and between there and 20 feet I keep shifting, more and more quickly. He follows me exactly to the point he is sidestepping instead of moving forward, waiting for me to reach him. At this point I take his presence in. He is 6 feet 3 inches at the shortest, in jeans and black hoodie with the hood up. Can't really make out his face due to a street light behind him casting a shadow. I begin to realize, oh fuck. I come to a stop and go to pull my headphones out and begin the sentence, what the fuck man. I get to what the f dash when he raises both arms above his head and begins to scream at me. No legible words I can hear over my podcast. I do notice he has something long and white/beige in his hands. At this point I begin to backtrack, keeping eyes on him. All of a sudden, he dashes towards me running with his arms stretched out to grab me. I turn and hightail it the other way. It should be known I am not in the best of shape. I've had numerous injuries requiring surgeries and I've just done about 75% of my intended run for the night, but I've never ran faster. He kept pace, and closed much of the distance, but when we started going slight uphill I continued to make ground. We came to a fork in the path. After about a minute of this, the two paths circled around a fenced-in area that contained construction vehicles, mowers, etc. I made it look like I was going one way and at the last moment dashed the other way. The paths kind of made a circle so I was able to get far enough ahead to where he couldn't see me via the fence and bushes, and when I felt like it was my chance I dove into a bush, clawed my way under the fence and crawled through the space and out the other side of the fence. He kept looking for me in the bushes, prowling back and forth, and finally saw me on the other side of the enclosure. At this point I was already on the phone with the police trying to get help as gulped down breaths of air. I was also warning runners. He eventually just followed my pace opposite side of the fence. He kept ducking into darker areas around the enclosure and eventually I lost sight of him. I began getting worried again and kept wandering around, warning people while I waited on the cops. After about 15 minutes of not seeing him I pieced the fuck out of there as the cops said they were close. The jog home was horrible, and anytime a runner passed me I would have a mini panic attack. I was in shock and running off adrenaline the remainder of the night. I'm not really sure what happened or what was going on. It felt like it was from a movie. Today I checked the Citizen app and Twitter to see if anything had happened, and I'm not sure if it's related. It most likely isn't, but 5 hours after I called the cops they pulled the body of a man out of the river a mile or two downriver from where the attempted attack occurred. Story number 3, trapped on a flight with a crazy man. This happened a few years ago, but thinking about it makes me sick to my stomach. I'm a young woman and was returning to my hometown after a work-related trip. I'm sitting in the aisle seat and notice a young man sitting across the aisle 1 row in front of me. At first, things were fine. He seemed a bit nervous, but I chalked it up to a fear of flying. Then his behavior changed. Rather than looking scared, he began to look suspicious. his eyes darting around from person to person, as if trying to see if someone is watching him. Wiping sweaty hands on his jeans. At this point, I knew something was about to go down, so I locked eye contact. I wanted him to know that he had been seen. As we are preparing for takeoff, he jumps up trying to access the overhead bin. Multiple requests were made for everyone to remain seated, so the flight attendant urges him to sit back down. We take off and his erratic behavior continues. I felt such a heavy feeling of dread I was tempted to press the attendant button to report him. Twice more he tried to access the overhead bin in a rush while we were still climbing to top altitude. The attendant had to become aggressive with him in a way that I've never heard someone be yelled at on a plane. Finally we start cruising and he doesn't attempt to stand up. But he does start chatting with fellow passengers. He opens his phone and pulls up an image of a massive gun collection, showing it off to people in the surrounding area, and my heart just sank. Again I glared at him. Who the hell shows that to a group of strangers on a plane? At this point he caught the attention of the man sitting directly across the aisle from me. During the rest of the flight him and I just exchanged looks as the crazy dude geared up. The rest of the flight it just became apparent that the dude was off his rocker. He spoke about how he had a meeting with Donald Trump coming up on the calendar. Talked about how he was making millions with his investments in a new Bitcoin company. Seemed like typical puffery until he started talking about an ex-wife. He spoke about her with such violent hatred that again my insides felt knotted. This dude despised women, and he didn't do a good job of hiding it at all. Once we finally landed I looked at his ticket and was able to catch his name. The man darted off the plane and through the airport. Just for shits I googled the guy's name. Wanted to figure out if he was all bullshit, though I already suspected it of course. Turns out he was a notorious alt-right troll, actually pretty infamous. Known for spreading fake news and blocked from Twitter for soliciting violence against a black activist. Dude has been sued multiple times for misinformation and claims Obama is secretly gay. I have no idea what he actually had in that overhead container. Maybe it was a picture of his fake ex-wife, maybe something more sinister. But that gut instinct or women's intuition told me it was the latter. So alt-right troll, let's not meet again. Story number 4, I was sent photos of my house. Just over a year ago, I split up with a very abusive ex-boyfriend, Kieran. He would be physically, verbally, and sexually aggressive, and seemed constantly paranoid of being emasculated. This progressed to being paranoid about me even earning as much as him. I tried to be clear that I saw him as an equal, but it didn't matter. He fell further and further into the philosophy that women are the root of all evil. If ever there was a living, breathing caricature of genuine misogyny, he was it. I'm not a fighter, and he hated it. As he put it, the silence, the open void hurts me more. He wanted me to fight back, but I never would. So he would go to greater and greater lengths to assert dominance over me, one way or another. Violence isn't the focus of the story, but a small part. One incident was so extremely violent and calculated that I eventually reported it to the police, with the help of an off-duty copper. Due to the nature of the assault, it went straight to the Crown Court, reserved for the worst offences in the UK. Nothing came of it. With no eyewitnesses, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. I pressed no further. I just wanted it marked up, to help any future partners build a case that puts him away, if it ever happens again. This was the incident that tipped me towards making the decision to leave Kieran. It took some months, but I eventually did it. He made so many attempts to contact me that even the officer on my case raised his eyebrows. It was getting beyond borderline harassment. Long story short, This guy was not happy that he had lost me. He didn't care about my well-being, he cared about having me. I don't think I understand why, to this day. Kiran kept vying for my attention. He likes women of my political persuasion, and as I was a known and outspoken activist at the time, he began name-dropping me in messages to other women in the same political circles. I thought that maybe he didn't think we knew each other, at first. But then he started messaging friends. I try to be cordial with all former partners, including him, so when he messaged me asking if another activist we followed was still online, I told him she was. Big mistake. Within the hour, she DM'd me. She'd received aggressive messages from him demanding photos, and then demanding an explanation as to why she wouldn't oblige, because Kiran was my nice ex. I quickly told all other young female activists at my university, in my hometown and local party associations. Almost all came back to me saying they had indeed received messages from him. He was hounded off Twitter by a friend's boyfriend, and deleted his account. I know how that feels, and I feel bad for it, but I don't regret the act of warning my friends, especially the more vulnerable ones. But then a new account was made. KiranMate97. I only noticed because the first notification I remember getting the morning after was that this account had followed me. It had a photo of Kiran, and a few sunny tweets shared by my follows and followers about how he was new to Twitter and wanted some friends. I spread the warning to the same people, and blocked the account. But before long, there was another. I did the same, and blocked that too. My mother starting messaging me in confusion, sending me screenshots from her own Twitter. Kiran had found her anonymous account, and was asking her about beans she had bought the other day. Knowing the things Kiran had said about her to me, and possibly others, she was upset, and creeped out beyond compare. I advised she block him, he would tire himself out eventually. But I forgot something. One night, I was messaging friends, having a nice night in with my housemates. Then, my WhatsApp pinged. All of my family are on there, as well as a few busy activist groups, so I didn't think anything of it. Because of all the activist groups, too, I wasn't alarmed that it was an unsaved number that had messaged me, it was probably a colleague. I opened the message. The only thing there was a dark photo of a house, with an upstairs light on. I squinted, trying to look for the joke in the photo. Why would someone send me this? I could see a figure in the window, hunched over something small in their hand. I could see the end of the terrace. The hedges. The shape of the gate. The pebble dash. The light car out front. It was my house. I forgot my merriment, and messaged my friends. The conversation completely derailed, understandably. We scrambled to figure out who sent this to me, but by the time the second picture came in, I already knew. I didn't even look at it. Most of my uni friends at the time were competitive weightlifters, and they offered their house as a safe refuge until I figured out what was happening. I sent a frantic "What the fuck are you doing?" to Kiran. He started typing immediately. He'd been waiting. Peeking. He replied. It was a joke. Can you see that shadow? I'm not a bloody peeping Tom. I thought it was a joke when you first scared me shitless, but I can't make sense of it. Oh no. That was me just actually watching my neighbor's shadow eat a pot noodle for entertainment. As if I'd come for you XD. You know how I think better than anyone. I examined the second picture closely. It wasn't mine, but it looked very much like it. He hasn't texted me since. No Facebook messages, no WhatsApp, no calls. To this day, I still don't understand what the purpose of that whole exercise was. I stayed in my house, and left in the early afternoon for my friend's place the next day. For months afterwards, I was very careful about letting my landlady, neighbors, and friends know I was coming home. The doors and windows are always locked. I really don't know how he thinks. I hope I never do. The story number 5, to my high school friend, let's not meet. So this happened a few months ago. I'm a sophomore in college and was traveling down to my hometown over break. I was having some relationship issues with my stepmom, so I didn't want to stay at my dad's house the night I arrived at my hometown, so I phoned a friend of mine from high school if I could stay at his place. I knew from social media that he was still in town, and I've stayed at his place before, so I knew there would be a place for me to stay if they could allow it. My friend, let's call him Z, seemed like a pretty normal dude. We weren't best friends or anything, but we got pretty close by the time we graduated. We would occasionally text or hang out if I was in town, and catch up, reminisce on the times we spent in orchestra or in English class. When I called, he seemed extremely enthusiastic. Z's a normally upbeat guy, but this time it seemed like he was getting a brand new car. I didn't think about it at the time, and he said I could sleep in the guest room, so I headed over. When I got to his house, he was just as excited as he was on the phone. He was bringing up stuff to do like getting high and watching weird movies or playing video games. Z's parents weren't home, so he really wanted the opportunity to smoke. I was pretty tired from the drive, but since we rarely see each other, I thought a little bit of bonding couldn't hurt. We played Smash Brothers, smoked some weed, and just chat for a few hours. It was longer than I wanted, but I was having fun, so whatever, right? By the time it was getting late, around 2 a.m., he started asking some pretty weird questions, like if I ever wondered what it was like to kill someone or if I thought anyone would miss me if I was gone. This, along with some pretty normal questions like if I had a boyfriend or how my parents are doing or if I'm making any friends at school, gave me a weird feeling. I was confused in the moment, but it didn't hit me until after that Z could be assessing me for something bad. The weirdness of it all made me just wanna go to bed. We stopped the game and both went into the basement where his room and the guest room were. We say good night, I go to my room, and get ready for bed. I'm having trouble sleeping, just insomnia that I've had for a while, so I stay awake for around an hour until I hear some movement outside my room. The walls were pretty thin, so I could hear footsteps walking past my door and up the stairs to the main floor, then back down quickly after. What struck me as odd was that I didn't hear the basement door open, which creaks when it does. The light didn't turn on, so I was confused what Z was doing. I heard him go back into his room, but I had this odd feeling. Ever since I met him this night, he seemed a lot different than he's ever been. I decide to look him up on social media and Google to see anything out of the ordinary. Everything seemed normal, until I found his Tumblr, which was linked from his inactive Twitter account that I found on my Twitter contact list. His Tumblr was, well, disturbing. There were graphic drawings of mutilated bodies of humans and animals, links to suspicious-looking websites that I didn't dare to click on, text posts/stories about murdering, cannibalism, necrophilia, and torture. There were photos of guns, knives, and axes, which, after looking closely, were taken in his bedroom. The last post, around a week prior, was a text post from the account saying he wished he could find someone easy to kill like a homeless person. I was immediately filled with dread. I knew he was going to do something. He must have gone up the stairs to lock the door. I packed my things, luckily I packed lightly, and opened this small window at the top of my bedroom's wall. I started desperately climbing through, and as I was pulling my legs through, he opened the door. It was dark, but the street light illuminated enough for me to see he was carrying something long and skinny, so probably a knife. He didn't say anything, I didn't say anything. I just turned around, hopped in my car, and drove as fast as I could to my dad's house. I immediately blocked him everywhere and reported his Tumblr account, not before telling the police. They said they couldn't do anything as the guns were registered under his dad and he hasn't actually done anything yet. Nevertheless, I told my other high school friends not to hang out with Z. Ever since then I've been creeped out whenever I meet new people. Just the realization that someone I knew so well could underneath be this person who could hurt me so bad. Who could kill me? I don't know what you're doing now, Z. I'm not sure I want to know, but I hope you're getting help. Anyways, let's not meet again.